Hi there, it's Mark Wickersham. In this video, I've done an interview with an extraordinary accountant who's been a member of the Value Pricing Academy since way back in 2015. He's done some amazing things, and I caught up with him the other day so that we could learn from all the amazing things he's doing. His name is Reza Hooda. He runs an extraordinary accounting firm, and in this interview he has shared so many things for building a successful accounting firm. So make sure that you have a pen and paper to hand, because you're going to want to take lots of notes. So this session's, Reza came to me a few weeks back and said it would be really good if we could just do a Q&A session, because as you probably know, Reza's been doing some amazing things in his firm. And so, and it's a while since Reza and I got together and did a Q&A or an online session. In fact, the last time, Reza, might have been when I came to your offices, I think, which was about 15 months ago, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. So this is probably long overdue. Anyway, I don't need to introduce much in terms of Reza, because you all know him very, very well. But just by way of introduction and background, as you know, there's a few changes with what we're going to be doing this year, and Reza's last session is going to be March, and here's the reason. So I first became, I think Reza, and you'll confirm it later perhaps, I think you joined really early days, early 2015, I think it was. And one of the things that for me was very noticeable is that you were somebody taking action and doing stuff right from the start. And I knew that because you kept posting things in the chat box, in the Facebook group, and sharing your successes and doing amazing things. And I know you also have been a really avid learner, always. Every one of my programs I've offered, I think you've been to at some point, worked through them all and taken action, done stuff. So I remember I think it was the back end of 2018, early 2019, where we said, let's do a webinar and you share what you did. And it was the first of the bonus ones we actually introduced, which I think was February 2019. You kicked that off and did a session, which was extraordinary. I thought it was, I learned so much from it myself. It was a fantastic presentation. The feedback was amazing, so much so that I thought, I need to have Reza coming back again at some point. And then we got talking, I think, later on that year, because you said that you were thinking about setting up a program to help other accountants with a similar model. And I remember you did some training, I think, that I did on how to build a mentoring group. And so you approached me and said you'd like to do some training for Academy members and also as part of building up what you were doing. And because you've been with me for so long and been doing some great things and shared your journey, your success along the way, we agreed that I would help you get up and running with the mentoring and bring you in as a trainer, which I think you joined, if I remember right, in July of 2019. I think that kicked off. Mm-hmm. And so Reza's been doing some amazing sessions for the last roughly, if my maths is right, 18 months. But of course, as perhaps you've been aware, Reza's always been building up his own program, which is starting to get some real traction now. He's doing some brilliant stuff with that. And so about 3, 4, 5 months ago, we started talking about it may be that we have to part company at some point, because clearly if Reza's building a mentoring business, a very similar kind of training to what I'm building, it didn't make sense longer term. The economics didn't work out and so on. And so we made the decision that that Reza's going to focus very much on his mentoring program from April onwards. The last session in our group will be March, but we will probably still do stuff together and keep in touch. I have no doubt whatsoever. And also, for those of you in the Academy, you will still get access to some of the trainings and recordings of resources. And also, we have got some new trainers coming on board this year, but I won't tell you any more about that for now. That's something for later. Anyway, what we decided to do for this session is really a Q&A. where Reza is going to reveal more of the story, share some of the things that have been working. And then what he's also going to do towards the end is he has got an offer for you. If you would like to join his mentoring program, he's got some exciting kicking off next month in February, and he'll tell you more about that briefly at the end. And he's done a little video that we'll put the link to at the end, so you can go and catch up and see what Reza's doing. So it doesn't have to be March, doesn't have to be the last time that you work with Reza, which I would certainly recommend. Check out what he's doing. So with that said, I think that's enough of me waffling on, because I'm not here to, I'm not here for you to listen to. It's Reza we want to hear from. So if you're okay, Reza, is it all good with you?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you very much, Mark. All good.
Okay, so I'm going to ask questions, and then we are going to have, roughly in about 50 minutes from now, we'll invite you to ask questions as well. So as we go through this session, if you've got any questions for Reza, you know the drill now. Use the Q&A box, stick your questions in the Q&A, and we'll probably deal with those at the end. Unless, Reza, you notice something and want to deal with it there, and then I'll leave you in control. I'll keep an eye on it as well. So questions for Reza we'll deal with at the end. Okay, so let's get started. So Reza, let's just start off just by just a quick reminder, background of you and your firm, where you're from, the size of your firm.
Sure, thank you, Mark, and yeah, thanks for the intro. It's been a pleasure working with you over the years, and I'm sure we'll get on to our journey together over the last 6 or 7 years now, which has just absolutely flown by. So yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I bought into a small traditional firm about 2008. So in the midst of the last recession, 11 years ago now. Prior to that, I worked at Price Bookkeeping, where I trained in tax. I bought into a small practice, and since then have transformed that practice, where we've trebled in size and got to with 17 members. So we're not massive, 17 members with probably about 150 or so clients, but my focus has been more on profitability. So our turnover kind of hit around 900K with 17 members, so around sort of 50-odd% net profit. And that's kind of the journey that I've gone over the last 11 years.
Wow. And we said earlier that you joined the Value Pricing Academy back in, I forget the exact date, but it was early 2015, I think. It wasn't called the Value Pricing Academy then, but it was the monthly mentoring. And so just briefly, what was life like before you joined the Academy? How is it different to things now?
Sure, yeah. So but way back then, we're talking, 6-7 years ago, I guess I was maybe not dissimilar to many accountants, kind of just trying to find my way, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, just kind of bumbling along, making lots of mistakes, but not actually knowing I was making mistakes, just, kind of getting some results, but not getting some results, and without really any focus, just getting by. I guess back then you had just started out your mentoring program, and there wasn't much in terms of, there were a few networks, AVN, etc. about, but there wasn't kind of, the wealth of information and knowledge and guidance that there is now 7 years back. So when I first joined your program, I kind of didn't really have a clue, and it was eye-opening, some of the things that you were talking about. And like you said, as soon as I came on the program, started taking action and saw results pretty much instantly.
Yeah, and there's no doubt you are an action taker, and everyone will know I talk a lot about the note takers and the action takers. Some people just take notes, others go away and just do stuff, and I know that you're extremely good at doing that. What were some of the changes that you started making?
So clearly you were the expert on pricing, so that's where I started. And even now, when I work with accountants with the 4-pillar framework, I always say we need to start with your pricing, because that is where the biggest changes happen and the biggest results happen. And as you know, and as everybody knows on this call, that clearly when you make a change to your pricing, you increase your pricing, it flows straight to your bottom line. It gives you that profit to then be able to reinvest back into your firm, to reinvest into hiring the right people, to invest in your marketing, to invest in your systems and processes. So yeah, learning about pricing was an eye-opener. I mean, little things, sometimes it's just simple things which can make a huge impact. I remember, I think it was either yourself or you did a joint session with Martin, and he spoke about how to actually have that initial pricing conversation and to never do it over a proposal, never send a proposal out by email. And prior to that, 7 years back, that's what I was doing. I was meeting with clients and I would go back to the office and I would spend ages crafting the perfect proposal and send it out by email or by letter in those days. And sometimes I would hear back, sometimes I wouldn't, and I would spend ages following up. And then when I heard that about you should always have the pricing conversation in person with your prospect. And when I started doing that, I started to actually get better results because I was there in person to be able to articulate the value that we were going to offer. I was there to be able to answer the objections that came from the prospects and learn much more about that sales process. And to actually really understand that when we are having that conversation, we are allowing them to buy, as you used to say, and we are not, a lot of accountants don't like the word sales because they feel it's a bit, salesperson-y, but actually it's a necessity. And actually we are serving our clients by selling to them, by allowing them to buy from us, because we're going to help them make transformational changes in their business and their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I know that that when we did that session back in February 2019, a lot of that was talking about your approach to how you have the pricing conversation and how you the process that you then do. You then went through with proposals that went through with the client and had that conversation. So, what sort of results was that getting for you? And how quickly did you see results?
Yeah, I saw results pretty much straight away. I think back then we used to have a very low average fee. I mean, I didn't really have a minimum fee. I was happy if I went out and got a client that was paying £100 a month. And when I started to sort of implement a process where I was having that pricing conversation in person with a prospect, where I was really understanding their pain points better, and I was in a position where I could really extract the problem that was holding them back, I was able to then price particularly advisory projects, one-off tax projects, much better than I used to. Back then, there were cases where, I would bill based on time, which is completely crazy. And then obviously working with you opened my eyes to actually, people are not buying time from us. They're buying outcomes from us. They're buying solutions. They're buying results. And therefore, we have to value price it in that way to get our objectives aligned with our clients' objectives. So yeah, instantly started to get results, but it is a journey, and you have to, like you say, you've got to continuously take action. It's no point just learning the theory and waiting for perfection to start implementing. You've got to start implementing, because it's all about testing when it comes to pricing. You've got to test, you've got to try out your skills, the questions, the template you have, see the reactions that you get, and continuously let it evolve. Because for us, because we work in an area where there is so much opportunity for scope creep, it's one of the biggest pain points for accountants, scope creep. And that's why our pricing has to continuously evolve. It's never perfect. There'll always be something where you'll find, this particular area has taken us so long, and we haven't been paid for it. Well, that represents a gap in scope that we haven't factored into our pricing system and process, which means that you've got to have a system initially and then continually let it evolve and add and tweak, forever on end. It's a continual process, which I'm still doing to this day.
Yeah, interesting. And where was I going? There's something you said, which I'll probably come back to later, because it was interesting. But one of the things that's right, yeah. You said the results, they started off, they built and built. And I think I remember going back to 2017, 2018, and my mind's a bit hazy now. I forget the exact numbers and so on. But I remember one of the first times you shared a success story with me. It was it was a project you'd done and it was something like 10,000 or something. And then about a month or so later, you sent another email through saying, I've got one that's, I think, I forget again, it was 20 or 30. And then I think you had this huge one that may have been six figures a little while later. And it was interesting seeing that the results that you were getting were getting more and more impressive as you kept implementing and doing stuff. One of the questions that I was thinking as I've been listening to you is, and I know you said that I asked you what changes have you made, and you started with pricing changes, and it'd be interesting to see what other changes you made. But one of the things that I kind of get a sense of is that one of the changes that you have made is around the nature of the work that you do. In other words, when I the last few years hearing your successors, it seems to me from those successes that you've had much more of a focus on things that are creating more value, more valuable work. Has that been a change? Have you had a shift in the nature of the work from before to what you do now?
Yeah, there has been. I guess our industry has evolved so much in the last decade that we have had to pivot, we've had to adapt our business models. And I mean, I think it's a huge opportunity for us now, accountants, because of the nature of the changes that have taken place. I mean, if you go back 10, 20 years, then the typical accountant would just pretty much be doing year end. The client would maybe have a bookkeeper in place to do the internal bookkeeping. And, we, the high and mighty and lofty accountant, would just do the year end. But actually there's with cloud technology and the ability to work with our clients in real time, I see bookkeeping as a highly valuable service, and packaged up in a provision of a full finance function for clients represents a huge opportunity for us accountants at the moment. And that's the areas where we've been getting particular success over the years, and being able to obviously use the concepts of pricing, like anchoring to the cost of clients, SMEs, kind of between 500,000 and 3 million turnover, employing their own staff versus us running their full finance function for them, allowing us to get fees, recurring fees of between, say, 10 and 70,000 pounds per client.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier the four pillars that you talk about. I'm sure you'll talk about them more in a short while, but I know what the four are because you shared them with me. So would it be a fair comment to say that it's not been so much of a shift in the type of work that you're doing, for example, a move away from compliance, but more a change in positioning?
Oh, absolutely. Positioning has played a key role, and that's one of the four pillars I talk about as well. You mentioned about, the successes that I used to inform you about, and just kind of touching on that, because that plays a part in the positioning. When I finally decided to niche into a particular area of property tax, and then I started to see the level of inquiries going up, being seen as the credible expert in that particular area, and then was able to get to a point where I think, going from the 10,000, I think in 2016, I priced the property incorporation at 66,000, and I was blown away by that, and I thought that would never be beaten. And then a couple of years later, in 2018, had the opportunity to price up another advisory project, and we got a fee of 135,000 for that. Hasn't been beaten yet, but I'm really comfortable with that one. But I guess knowing the process means that you're able to spot opportunities a lot better. And then when the opportunity does arise, you feel a lot more confident in actually uncovering what it is that the client wants to achieve, position yourself as the expert, and then obviously value pricing it to ensure that you are being fairly remunerated based on the amount of value that you are delivering for a client. And it really is about focusing, because when you secure a fee like that, you do everything and all it takes to make sure the client gets that result, because that's what they're paying for. And that's how it should be. As you've said, time-based billing is a lazy way to price. It puts all the risk on the client and nothing on you. And that's not right. That's not fair. We should be in it with our clients. Our objectives should be aligned with our clients' objectives. If we are providing little value, then we shouldn't be charging so much. If we're providing loads of value, then we should price accordingly.
Yeah. Great tips. Keeping on this subject of positioning, so what are some of the kind of the specific changes that you've made in that area with positioning? Has it been things like just the conversation with clients? Has it been the branding? Have you changed things like brochures, websites, that sort of thing? What specific things have you done with positioning?
Yes, I think it was. I think when you, one of your sessions, probably going back 6 years, where you first suggested to write an ebook. So I think that was my first foray into positioning myself as an expert in a particular area. And I wrote a little ebook. I think it was 10 tax strategies guaranteed to save you thousands. I think I sent you a copy.
You did.
And that was, and I got incredible results just from that little ebook, which was, say 10 pages of a Word document. And that kind of opened my eyes to say that there's something in this about positioning yourself as an expert and then using that as a way to generate the right type of inquiries from your ideal clients. And back then I wasn't niching. I guess it was a type of niche. It was a niche by activity, kind of tax, as opposed to niching in a particular industry, which helped. But obviously now, the more laser focused you are, the better. So, that was the first one, and then others came. And then when I decided to specialize into property tax, then I wrote a more detailed a book, which was about 130 odd pages, which I got published on Amazon, and it sells for, I think, 15 odd pounds on Amazon. And that really helped as well, because that kind of positioned me as an expert in the sector. And off the back of that, I was able to then charge for initial consultations. So now people, because I've given so much value at the outset, they've got a book, which they can also download for free, the PDF copy. There are videos where I'm sharing lots of content and giving away tips and advice for property owners. So that when I say that if you want to book an initial meeting with me, it costs £279 plus VAT, people pay it because they've got a lot of value up front. They appreciate that this guy is a specialist in the sector and he is able to really help me and give me value in that initial 45 minutes to an hour conversation. So positioning is highly important, and it helps us to get inquiries from our ideal clients. And when we get those, then we're able to charge a fair price and charge a lot more for the value that we give, because we focused on really helping them with their particular problems, given our expertise in that area.
And I think you've written a few ebooks now, haven't you?
I have, yes. I've written a few, probably about 4 or 5 now, I think.
Yeah, very, very impressive. And do you have landing pages, lead pages for all of them?
Yeah, that's right. So each one has a landing page and has a campaign. And that's kind of the starting point for anyone who wants to kind of go down that journey, is to have that cornerstone piece of content. Because once you have that, then you can build out the nurture campaigns that go along with that, the email sequences, and also then tailor your kind of top of funnel awareness activity, your social posts, your tweets, to drive traffic towards that particular lead magnet that's going to give a lot of value, which then gives you the email address. And you talk about this a lot, about building your email list, which is really important, because although social media is great, there's the famous saying about don't build your mansion on rented land. And social media is rented land. The algorithm might work for you today, but it won't work for you tomorrow. So the email address is really still a prized possession, and where it still should be focused on getting as many people in our email list as possible, because that is going to be our source of inquiries in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that as well. I'm obsessed with list building. It's so important. So on the subject of marketing then, because you talked about pricing, the change you made there. On the subject of marketing, what do you find? So you've talked about list building and focusing on building lists with eBooks and so on. What do you find are the best ways from a marketing point of view of winning new clients? What things work best?
Sure. So I guess it's a mixture of a lot of things, but I think, having the right strategy is the starting point to really understand and know who your ideal client is. And I think now more than ever is that it's so important to niche. And every marketer that you speak to will tell you that you need to niche. And there are a number of reasons for that. But the main reason is that when you're trying to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. So you've really got to hone in on who is it that your ideal client is. Because if you don't really have an ideal client strategy, then you don't have anything to really create any compelling content for. It will just get lost in the sea of content that we have flowing in the online world today, which we know is vast. So that's kind of the starting point. Once you get your strategy right, I'd really recommend that you choose a niche. You don't have to niche your practice. You can niche your marketing. It doesn't mean that you turn away work. In fact, you'll get better quality leads and you get clients paying you more because you have niched. So I wouldn't worry. There is this fear that I won't be able to, take on clients that come to me in other sectors. That's not the case. You'll still get those referrals. We niched in property, but only say maybe 30% of our client base is in the property sector. But the majority of our inquiries are from the property sector because that's where our marketing is focused. And we're about to build out another niche as well for content creators and social media influencers. So it's about, when you do that, you've got to speak to your ideal client. And if you're not really talking to them, then they'll find somebody who does. People always want to work with a specialist, not the generalist. And the specialist gets paid more than the generalist. So yeah, the ideal client strategy is key. And then it's about, video is big, about list building, use video if you can, blog posts. But yeah, I'd say start with the strategy is absolutely critical. And particularly in this day and age where people's buying habits have changed since the pandemic, we're not socializing as much. There isn't as many referrals passing between people because they're not getting together. There's no family gatherings. There's no BNI meetings. There's no networking meetings, which means that more and more people are looking online for their accountant. They are consuming content. They are seeing who's popping up more. They are seeing who's offering them value. And therefore, if you want to make great strides and grow your accounting firm, then that's absolutely the first place to start, is to actually pinpoint who your ideal client is and where you want to niche.
And picking up on that thread, because as we record this, we're still nearly a year into this pandemic, and you've touched on the need to change, no BNI, for example, and people not meeting. So what have you seen over the last 12 months have been some of the biggest changes, and how have you pivoted? What are some of the key things you've done to change your practice to meet this new world that we are currently living in?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I have talked about this in a masterclass that I did. We've incredibly, and we had our best ever year since March of last year. So I think we've grown by adding fees of about over 150,000 since the pandemic began, and it's not an overnight thing. It's due to all the years spent in creating those digital assets and having an online presence, and having a network of people that refer to us through online sources, because. And what I touched on earlier, the providing of the full finance function. And given that we are now able to service any client anywhere in the country through cloud technology, it's more important than ever to have an online presence, because clients are not concerned where you are anymore. Clients are just concerned that you're well positioned to be able to solve their problems and give them what they need. And they're a lot more comfortable now having Zoom conversations, meeting with you online, for all the work to get undertaken online. And we know, and people on your program are switched on, they're dynamic, they've got cloud technology in place. The natural step of that is to go out and start positioning yourself as the accountant for that particular sector. And you will get these inquiries that you'll be able to service very profitably from wherever you are. Because now with technology in place and people becoming more comfortable with technology, which is the key, will allow you to grow your firm in 21 and beyond.
Yeah, fascinating. Interesting to know that in 2020 that you grew, and I hear lots of stories of that. It was my best year as well in my business, and I think it's when there's a big change, like a pandemic, like recessions, everyone panics at first because we don't like to change. But I think that what it's done, looking at it from a positive point of view, is it's really been a catalyst for something that's been happening for a long time. We know that in the profession there's been this move to cloud technology for a while, and a lot of firms have resisted that and resisted doing online meetings using things like Zoom, even though Zoom's been around for a long time now. Firms have resisted, but I think people have made that change now and are now realizing it's probably a better way to do business. And it was interesting your point about, you said that you're finding that clients now don't care where you are, so it opens up the country. And certainly from my perspective, looking at from the other side of the fence, as you know, I create software, Effective Pricing, for example. We've used the developers for a while, and I remember having the first Zoom call with them just shortly after lockdown in 2020, and they'd never used Zoom before. They'd never had online meetings, and it was strange. But now they find it much easier running their business. And I find it from a customer point of view, I don't care they're not around the corner. It works just as well that my technology advisor is I'm now in Portugal, as you know, so a different country. So it's interesting how I think it opens up opportunities to run our firms in different ways. So going back to, thinking about some of the changes that you've made, you've talked a bit about pricing. I'm happy to go back there, by the way, because I know it's a big topic. But what other changes have you made in your firm? What transformations over the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, so I guess it probably makes sense to talk about the other pillars. We've talked about pricing, we've talked about positionings. The other two are people and processes. So I've done a lot over the years to understand better about teams, what motivates people, how to get the best out of people, how to attract the best talent, how to retain your high performers, how to maximize everyone's potential. So that's an area where I have myself gone on a journey and read lots of books and learned from people in that regard, and tried to inculcate some of that in our firm, where we are creating a culture now. So one of the things we did was to go to a results-only work environment a couple of years ago in 2018, where our people can work when, where, and how they want, as long as the work gets done, which pre-pandemic was something that not many people did. It was a bit of an alien concept. But post-pandemic, the pandemic has been a silver lining in terms of people really understanding that a ROE can work, a results-only work environment can work, because we've been able to see that work has still got done without seeing our employees with their bums on seats. So it's accelerated that thinking, where accounting firm owners that I talk to now, they can actually see it transpiring because they've done it for the best part of a year. And that's one of the ways where we've been able to build a culture of performance, of output, again, all aligned to what we did with pricing. So clients don't care about how much time we spend. So why are we still doing timesheets? It makes no sense to do timesheets. And therefore, focusing our employees' efforts on the same outcomes that we want for clients is when you get that synchronization between what our employees are doing and what we want to achieve for clients. It's all about outcomes. And the results-only work environment has helped with that, because we're focusing more on the work and managing the work rather than managing people. So that's another area that I've invested a lot of time and effort into, trying to build that culture and get a team that can run without me. So now, thankfully, the team basically run the firm. They run the day-to-day, which then allowed me to set up the mentoring program and do what I do to help other accountants, because the firm takes care of itself by and large. And then the processes, so ensuring we have the right systems and software and processes in place, so we're continuously looking at to make sure that we're running as efficiently as possible when it comes to onboarding and workflow and practice management and pricing software and all those things, to give our team the tools that they need to be able to work more efficiently and effectively and serve our clients in the way that we want to deliver those world-class experiences.
And on the subject of processes and technology, what do you see as being perhaps the three most important pieces of technology or apps or software systems that you've put in place over the last few years?
Yeah, I guess, pricing software is one, which is critical. So, having your pricing software, to be able to have the pricing conversation with a client in person, to make sure that the scope is fully covered, and making sure that that's evolving continuously, to ensure that you've got you're not suffering from scope creep. So pricing software is one. Another one would probably be, there's so many practice management softwares and things. So, as long as you've got a practice management software that works, where you can track workflow, then, that's critical to have. And since the pandemic began, the Calendly has been a lifesaver. So, and I think most people have Calendly or similar, Acuity, etc. But that's been great as well. And it has saved my PA lots of time trying to arrange meetings with clients and people. And that's, so just utilizing the technology to hand, and seeing it as a way to help us be more efficient, because it saves us time. And if it's saving us time, then we're using that time in a more effective way, rather than in doing unnecessary admin.
Yeah, and again, pick up on something you just said a little while ago. Was it's very impressive that you have moved to this results only work environment, which not many firms have done that yet. I know of a couple of others. So you were right at the bleeding edge of things there. And then during that, you mentioned the dreaded T word, the timesheets. And I recall, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was something like 2018 that you said to me that you were thinking of dropping the timesheets in your firm, and we've never actually talked about it since. So, and correct me with the date, I don't know when you did stop doing the timesheets, but how have you noticed the changes? What difference has it made? And also linked to that, what challenges have you found? Have you started measuring different things to replace the timesheets?
Yeah, so I think it was around, it's probably around 2017. I can't remember whether it coincided with us implementing ROE, or whether we had dropped the timesheets before we went ROE. But either way, it was around that time, because clearly in a results only work environment, you don't measure time. So the timesheets had to go by the wayside. And with the results only work environment, you have to be very precise as to what you are measuring. What does work mean? So to be very clear about expectations. And this is something that, is continuously evolving, to make sure that our team know exactly what's expected to them, and how they're held accountable, because that's what we're measuring now. We're measuring performance and work. We're not measuring time anymore, because time has no relevance in terms of our output to a client. So it was around that time. So, and then when we went to ROE, we had a discussion around, okay, so what should we measure now? And we had to think about, okay, well, what is important to a client? Because that's the kind of things we need to measure. If our reason for being is to make our clients' lives easier, is to help our clients achieve their goals and objectives, is to help them to live easier, better lives, then how can we measure whether we are on track with our outcomes? So we had to think about, okay, well, client service is obviously key. How do we measure whether clients are happy with us? So things like how many Google and Facebook reviews are we getting? That would be a measure of whether we are doing the right things or not. If we can reach out to a client after they've said thank you, to ask for a Google review, that shows we're on the right tracks. And it gets the employees' minds focused on that's our target, which means if I work back from that, I need to do a good job. I need to go over and above. I need to be proactive, because my target is to get 3 or 4 Google reviews this month. So by working like that, you get the result that you want in terms of where you want your employees to focus their efforts. Other metrics we use are things like turnaround times, because we know that what clients value is having things turn around quickly. They want their accounts quickly. They want their tax returns quickly. So that's something that we should measure, because it's important to a client. So the number of percentage of accounts that get done within 4 months of the year end is something that we measure. Other things we measure are things like proactive touch points. So we know that one of the main reasons that clients leave their accountant is because the accountant hasn't been proactive enough. So that's something we need to make sure we are doing and measuring. So again, a continuous reminder to the team that that's important. We are measuring it. How many proactive touch points have we had this month? So it focuses their minds and efforts in doing that kind of thing. And then others like obviously billing targets and measuring our employees' pulse score, because we want our team to be happy. So we have an app where it's called 15-5. The team check in each and every week, and they give a pulse score out of 5 as to how they're feeling, how the week has gone. And we track that. We make sure that, you know, our number is at least over 4 every single month on average. So yeah, they're a sample of some of the metrics that we track in the firm to measure what's important to clients.
Well, fascinating stuff. There's some great tips there. And I remember when I was studying some of the stuff by David Maister, and he wrote a book called Practice What You Preach, where he looked at, based on a research study, he found there was a very strong positive correlation between how happy your team are, your people are, and how happy your customers are. You've got happy people, happy team members, then you're going to have happy clients. And what that translated into was happy people, happy clients ended up with higher profits in professional service firms. So I think measuring those two things, happiness of clients, happiness of your own team, are critically important. And the research suggests that, and you do that, which is awesome. So yeah, fascinating to hear about what you've been doing with the whole results-only work environment, which of course is something that we have as well. Our team isn't as big as yours. There's 3 of us, and we have Emily over in the UK. But we don't have, for example, Emily doesn't have a holiday entitlement. She takes off holidays when she wants to, whenever it is. There's no strict 9 to 5. And I think that in this day and age, I think that certainly the younger generation, what they value in a workplace is flexibility. It's so important. And I know the objection, I don't know I'll ask your thoughts on this, Reza, but I think one of the big objections people have, particularly the traditional accounting firms, is, yes, but if I don't track their time, if I don't check their clocking into the office, and how can I trust they're doing the right thing? And I remember hearing from, I think it was Paul Dunn years ago, he said it's crazy that we employ knowledge workers, you know, these intelligent people, and we can't trust them. We have to manage every few minutes of their time using a timesheet. So, what's your thoughts on that, Reza, with trusting your team?
Absolutely, that's fundamental. You know, we have to trust our team, and yeah, it's really funny how, you know, you go through college and university, and you're left to your own devices to make sure you get the work done. You don't have a professor standing over you in the library saying you must sit here and work between the hours of 9 to 5 because that's the only way you're going to pass your exams. You are able to manage your commitments and your, you know, to attend lectures or not attend lectures. And you know that if you put the work in, you go to lectures, you do your assignments, you will get the grades that you want. And you also know that if you don't attend lectures and you spend all your time partying, you won't get the results. And that's the same with the workplace, that, you know, you have to trust our people to give them clear objectives and expectations as to what we expect of them, and they will deliver. And if they don't deliver, then it's fairly clear that they're not performing, they're not delivering. And therefore, there's basically the premise in a row is you do your job, you keep your job. So by us creating a culture which gives them complete freedom, but with clear objectives, you basically create a culture which nobody wants to leave because it's so good, because they can manage the demands of their life with the control that they have around their time. You see, we all have different demands in our life. You know, we have the demands of our work, we have demands of our home life, of our kids, of, you know, the hobbies that we want to do. You and I, as and others on this call, we are, as the entrepreneurs, we can control our time. So we can drop our kids in the morning to school, and we can you know, work the hours that we want and pick them up and take a day out to go and play golf or spend time with our other half, which means that although life is hectic for us, we've got loads on our plate, life is manageable. But for employees who are stuck in that 9 to 5, they also have the same demands. They have the demands of work, they have demands of their home life, of their kids, of other things that they want to do, but they have low control, which means they can't control their time, which means life is equally hectic for them, but life is miserable. And therefore, giving them that control that we have and setting clear expectations will means that you'll have a happier team member who will be more productive and generate more output because we've given them that trust to manage the demands of their work and life to still get things done.
Great thoughts there. Yeah. I'm just conscious of time, and there's still so many questions I could ask. So you've talked about a lot of the changes that you've made, the transformations that you've made, and it's a lot. And I'm sure you've made some mistakes along the way. I know I did when I started my firm. If you could start again, what would you do different?
Yeah, great question. I would probably niche a lot earlier. So I would position myself in a particular sector a lot earlier than I did. And in fact, we're launching a new brand this year. It's for content creators and social media influencers. It's going to have a separate name entirely. So I'm very excited about that because it's probably what I would have done or should have done had I started 12 years ago. And now knowing what I know and I have full confidence that we'll get our branding right, we'll get our messaging right. It just provides that complete focus and clarity as to what we need to do to get this business to generate the level of revenue and clients that we want. There's no kind of wishful thinking that, will it happen? Will it not happen? I know it will happen because it's a proven process. Once you get your ideal client positioning right, the messaging follows. You can then create the content. You can then generate the content to get the email addresses, to then put people into a campaign and start that funnel to start to get the inquiries that you want. And we know we can then deliver it. And then the marketing continues in terms of providing that excellent service of really understanding our clients on a deeper level, which means that we're going to provide so much value that they will then refer people like them to us. And it then just turns into a virtuous circle. So that's probably the one big thing I would do differently if I started again. And then obviously all the pricing stuff, never sending off an email with a price on it, always having that pricing conversation in person. And all the things and never keeping timesheets the list goes on.
Yes. So, same for me. We make so many mistakes in life. It would be nice if we could start again, but that's not always possible. You did say, going back to right early on in the conversation when you were talking about pricing, that you kind of would take on anybody. And I think if I got it right, you kind of implied that you now have things like minimum prices, that you're very clear in your mind that you won't take people on for a certain price. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So it's 175 a month. So it's about, just over £2,000 that is our minimum fee. Yeah.
So what's your thoughts? Because I think it was actually in the value pricing category a few years back when I said you must have a minimum price. And I know from research I've done over the years, some of the most successful accountants that I've worked with have minimum prices, and quite high ones, kind of along the lines of yours, $2,000 a year, $3,000-4,000 a year. And someone said, yeah, but if I did that, if I had a minimum fee of 175 a month for $2,000 for the year, that means I'd be turning a lot of work away and saying no to people. What's your view on that?
That's exactly what you want to be doing, because one of the biggest ills for most people is that they end up taking on anyone. And then they're just bogged down and they've got too much to do and they've got all these queries coming in and the clients don't value what they do. So you've got to be really, really clear and allow yourself that breathing room. You should always have room for your best clients, so for your VIPs. It's like the hotels will always have VIP suites available for their best customers. And that's how we need to build our practices, to always have that spare capacity for the kind of clients that we want to attract, for the ones that are going to pay us 10, 15, 20,000 a year, where we can generate so much more value. So it makes no sense to take on board anyone and everyone. You absolutely have to have, clear clarity on what it is and believe in yourself, believe that you're adding so much value, because no doubt that you are. It's often the case that we haven't communicated and articulated that value to our clients in the way that we should have, which means they don't value us so much. And as you said, and as people know in life, that you get what you pay for. The more you pay, the more likely it is that people are going to value you a lot more than if they don't pay so much.
So true. A few more questions. One is, I'm interested to know, what would you say is the best investment that you've made in your business?
Best investment is probably investing in myself. So, when I first joined your program, I remember I used to, I used to sit down and I wouldn't have any disturbances, and I would sit through the 90 minutes and I would take it all in, I would absorb it, and then I would make sure that I took some takeaways and implemented the teachings from that particular session. So my biggest investment is investing in me and making sure that I learn from people like you and other coaches and mentors that I've worked with and gone on courses. And really, it's accelerated over the last few years as I've started my own journey as a mentor to really ramp up the amount of learning that I'm doing. I'm continuously learning and absorbing. I think I read about 50 books last year, consumed hundreds of hours of podcasts and YouTube videos. But it's all necessary because it allows you but what I would say is, like you say, don't be just a note taker. Don't just absorb for the sake of it. Actually implement what you are learning. So every time I'm learning something and picking up an idea, I'm immediately making changes in my firm based on what I have read, watched, or listened to. And that's I would say probably the biggest and the best investment I've made is to make an investment in myself, to grow and to learn from people who have been there and done it before me.
That's so true. And I would say the same thing if someone asked me the same question, that I'm continually learning all the time, because you have to, and it's an investment, because when you learn something, like you've talked about how you figured out a better way of pricing, once you've got that knowledge, no one can take it away from you. It's always going to keep paying back over and over again. And I find it strange that I know everyone watching this, they're in the same mindset of we need to keep learning these skills. But I see so much of the rest of the profession that they're only in it for the CP points, and they go to the technical stuff they have to, but they're not learning what I think is, if you're running your own business, whether you're an accountant or whatever, a bookkeeper, if you're running a business, yes, you have to be able to do the technical work, but of much more importance to that is all these other things. How do you grow your business? What about strategy? What about marketing, selling? How do we get our pricing right? This is stuff we as business owners, we need to continually learn. Great point. What do you see, Reza, as, just moving the conversation on a bit because I'm conscious of time, what do you see as being the biggest opportunities for the profession right now?
Sure. I think I touched on this earlier about the way things have changed and the buyer's journey has changed. So the way people find accountants and do business with accountants has changed since the pandemic. Majority has gone online. So we need to make sure that we are positioned correctly to take advantage of this big opportunity that presents itself, where people are comfortable with dealing with remotely, with dealing with you wherever you are. So really focus on positioning, and the provision of the full finance function service, which means that you can basically take care of a client right from bookkeeper to CFO and anything in between, because that is an area where we can really add value. So actually, compliance isn't dead. It's very much alive and thriving. And we can really position ourselves to provide that full service much more profitably than ever before, using the cloud technology that we have at our disposal.
Wow, that's a great insight. In fact, reflecting back on the last 50 minutes or so, there's so many great things that you've said. It'd be great by kind of way of summing up. I'm going to put you on the spot here, but if you were to recommend to somebody watching, listening, what would be the 3 things they should go away and do? What would those 3 things be? What do you think have been the most important things that you've learned and that other people should be thinking about and doing?
Sure. Yeah, I would say, look at your pricing. Get focus on getting your pricing right, because when you get your pricing right, then it just paves the way for you to be able to do other things in your practice. Secondly, positioning. Positioning is key, and even more so in this day and age. You cannot be the generalist anymore. You've really got to knuckle down and find that particular sector of client that you can add real value to. You don't need to have lots of clients in a particular industry to niche. We have 2 clients in the content creator, social media influencer space, and we are niching to create a business and a brand that appeals to them. Because those 2 clients we've worked with for a long period of time, we understand them deeply. So we have a lot more knowledge than the generalist, even with working with 2 clients. I don't think you have to have lots of clients to niche in a particular sector. And lastly, I would say is what we finished talking about is invest in yourself and take action. So, learn from those that have been there before you and done it, and that will help you to shortcut your learnings much faster than trying to go it alone and make all the mistakes that Mark and I did in our journey.
Awesome. There's some amazing tips there. Kind of possibly a final question, or it might be a penultimate one. There may be some more coming as I think of things. I'm conscious that other people have asked some questions. What does the future have in store for you next, Reza? Where do you see you going and your firm?
Sure. So yeah, this year we want to build out the new brand. The name is, I think it's decided. It's going to be Capture. So accounting capture is in capturing content for content creators and social media influencers. So I want to get that off the ground. And to continue my work with accountants. So I'm really excited about the course I have, which I'll talk about in a minute, and helping other accountants to shortcut their learnings and to be able to make great strides into making a difference in our clients' lives. Because we have, as accountants, we're incredibly lucky to be in a position where we can impact individuals' lives in such a massive way. Than any other professional out there, because we are that trusted advisor.
Awesome. I'm going to shift to one final question that's going to be non-business related now, but I know that one of the things that we have in common, that as I watch some of your postings and videos and things, that you're very disciplined in your life. You just like you've said earlier, that you're an action taker. You go and take notes, but then you take action. You do stuff, and you get results, and that's clear within your firm. But thinking about your personal life, you may know I did a session in December on how to get more done, and one of the things that has been very important to me is this whole idea of getting into good habits and getting rid of bad habits, and so things like I go on my bike for a bike ride usually 4-5 times a week, and sometimes more. In fact, during lockdown, it was 7 times a week. I try to run once a week as well, just to mix it up. After I broke my arm back in 2019, I realized that I have no upper body strength. So I've been doing things like press ups, sit ups, and all these sorts of things. And Sarah and I were laughing because we have these systems now for tracking it all. And it's interesting, you then recommended to me, you said you need to go and read Atomic Habits, which I read on your recommendation, and interesting reading that, because it was stuff that I sort of knew and did, but it actually made things become even clearer in my mind. And so I've actually tweaked some of my habits now and the way we do things. So tell me a bit about some of the processes that you use to get into good habits and be in control of your life.
Yeah, that's such an important area, Mark, and something that I've also worked on over the years, because we can't decide our own future, but what we can decide on is our habits. And when we choose our habits, that then decides our future. So yeah, some of the things that I'm like you, I'm also quite active. I make sure I get a workout in. We're very lucky. We have our garage was converted into a gym because my wife is a personal trainer. So we had that all kitted out. So I make sure I get my workout in every morning before I come to the office. So I'm quite disciplined in that regard. And I guess just having something else that I've been working on over the last few months is also having creating a knowledge hub and building a second brain. And what that is all about, because there's so much that there's out there in terms of information. There's so much that we read, watch, and listen to. But our brains are not designed to store information. They're designed to come up with ideas and help us solve problems. So they're not great at storing information. And therefore, wouldn't it be great if we built a second brain whereby we could store all these things that we are reading, watching, and listen to, which interconnect with each other, so that when we need to create something, then we can easily access those things in our second brain to allow us to, say, create the content, or to plan out whatever project it is that we're working on, or even to say we want to write a book. If you were to sit down now and say, I want to write a book, it would be quite overwhelming. But what if you had a system in place where you were kind of planting these seeds over time, over a period of months and years, in one place, knowing that maybe one day I'll write a book, and then you want to write a book and you open it up and everything is there. And then from that point onward, it's not going to take you very long. So that's something as well that I am trying to get into the discipline to build out a digital note-taking system as my second brain, so that I can house all these things there that I'm consuming that's going to help me in one of my projects in the future.
Love that idea. And it's got me thinking now, because as you know, I'm a big fan of Trello. We have millions of Trello boards, and I use that for storing information because I forget things. I have enough stuff to worry about, so I build up my library in there. So I love that idea. Anyway, I know other people have got questions, but before we do that, you've mentioned a couple of times about what you're doing helping with accountants. So if you could just explain what it is that you're doing, and then I think you've got a link or something to put into the chat box, and then we'll get on to other questions.
Sure. Okay. So is it all right if I share my screen, Mark? I've got a few slides.
It absolutely is. I just might need to do something at my end then, I guess. Oh no, it's there.
Is it okay?
Yep.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you, Mark. So as Mark mentioned, from March onwards, our agreement is going to come to an end, all very amicably. So I just want to go through the program that I have available. And if you would like to join, I can put a link in the chat box. So essentially, there's three ways, unsurprisingly, there's three ways of working with me. The first one is kind of one-to-one support, where I work very closely with you on a one-to-one level, and that's $1,200 a month. The virtual mastermind program I have is for a smaller group of accountants, where we have one-to-one sessions each and every month. You also get access to a monthly group coaching session and a private WhatsApp group. And that's kind of limited spaces. There's only 12 in one group. What you have had access to over the last 18 months is the monthly mentoring program, where I deliver a monthly session where I do a deep dive into a particular area and then create resources, templates, checklists that I then give to you, which help you to shortcut your learnings and to implement things faster. What's also part of that, which direct members of the monthly mentoring get, is a private WhatsApp group for any questions or challenges that you have throughout the month. And also, we've recently implemented a lunch and learn monthly session, which takes place a week after the monthly mentoring session, where it's Zoom meeting style, so everyone has their cameras on, and you get to come and ask your questions and about the previous session or about any other challenges that you're having, and you can then learn from your peers and ask any questions from me to help you along the way. So that's the monthly mentoring program, which you have had access to. This is just a summary of everything that it includes. It also includes some online training content. The investment is $145 plus VAT, or $190 per month. Mark and I have agreed, because you are a valued member of the VPA, and if you take action today and and use the code OFFER25, then you get a massive 25% off for life. This offer is available only until Tuesday, the 12th of January, so a week tomorrow. The URL is rezahuda.com/VPA, which I'll put in the chat box as well. But if you take action today, you get not only 25% off, but also free access to the power positioning course that I'm launching in February. For non-members, this is £2,500 or $3,350. And this is a separate 7-month training program where I'll be working with you, Zoom meeting style, and giving you workbooks to help you to position yourself as the credible expert. And I'll be doing it with you. As I mentioned earlier, I am creating a separate brand, and I'll be going through the same process of creating a website, of creating lead magnets, of landing pages. I'll be sharing the resources with you, giving you the lead magnets that I create and templates that you can also put into action. And we'll work together over that 7-month period. And if you're a member of the program, before the end of this month, you get access to that course for free. I'll also give access to all my online training videos and resources, which are worth over £4,000. So this is the power positioning course. This is some of the online training video and resources that I have. On my website, there are quite a few video testimonials if you want to go and have a look at those, and a success stories page as well of current mentees. So this is what the page looks like. If you type in that URL, rezahooda.com/VPA, then you can see the full details of what's included together with a short video that I've put together for you. And if you join before the Tuesday, 12th of Jan, you get access to that 25% discount plus bonuses. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, happy to, Mark, hand over back to you. If, I don't know if Sarah, if you've got a link, if you could put it in the chat box, that would be great.
Yep, thank you, Reza. Thanks, Sarah. So let's just wrap up with a few questions that have come in. Now, the first one, Reza, I don't know if you've seen these or not. The first one's about your numbers, and of course, they don't reveal things you're not comfortable with. But Jean said, and I think someone said later on, Jean said, whilst 900K is a very impressive number, a headcount of 17 is significant considering labour costs. What's the breakdown of the various roles, stroke duties of your workforce?
Maybe that was, maybe they misheard me. It's a team of 7, not 17.
I thought it was 7, yes. I was thinking, you've grown a lot since I went to your offices 15 months ago. Okay, so hopefully that answers that one. Neil Criddle says, I know Reza niches in property tax, which I know you covered that, but has he gone through other areas of diversification other than his coaching program?
Not sure what you mean by that, Neil, in terms of diversification. If you mean in terms of other client sectors, so we're just about to launch that new brand for content creators. Diversification, maybe in terms of other businesses, perhaps. I do invest in property myself, and that kind of helped me to then niche into the property sector because I understood the challenges that landlords face and was able to talk their language as well, having had personal experience in that sector. So hopefully that answers it, Neil. If not, feel free to clarify, and I'm happy to re-answer.
Okay, next question from Jeff. What services do you provide, and which service is most profitable?
Okay, so we are, as you'd expect, a full service accounting firm, although nobody buys a full service. They buy a specific service for a specific problem. But I would say in terms of most profitable, what I talked about in terms of the big opportunity, providing that full finance function service where we do everything for a client, right from bookkeeper to CFO or FD and anything in between. And that has been our biggest growth area. So the kind of fees that we are getting range from sort of 10,000 up to 60,000 pounds per year for providing that service. So if you think about, I mean, say our largest client turns over, I think around 4 million pounds, but has a few different companies, has an entity here, has an entity in Hong Kong, has an entity in Australia. We run all the bookkeeping for them. So everything is on zero. We're managing all the internal bookkeeping. We're doing the management accounts. We're providing that FD type input so that we give them complete peace of mind that their finance function is dealt with. They don't have to hire a finance team, which would cost them probably 3 or 4 times as much that than they are paying out. So they might be paying at 60,000, but if they were to hire an FD, that would cost them 100,000 plus. If they were a finance manager, that would cost them, say, 60, 70,000. Even a bookkeeper would cost them 20,000. So it's still highly valuable to them. And that is the area where I believe is a huge opportunity for all of us to capitalize upon.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, this one, I think I know the answer to this one, but Kathy Anderson says, do you have a program to learn results-only work environment for accountants, which I guess is part of what you are doing?
Yes, that's right. Kathy, I do have a program, and I have online training for precisely this.
Okay, back to the timesheet debate. Christopher says, what about using time for efficiency measures, i.e. looking to improve specific processes?
The age-old debate on timesheets. It's the problem is that when you're measuring time, whether you like it or not, you are saying that time matters. But to a client, time doesn't matter. And when it comes to people, your people will have different strengths and weaknesses. Somebody will be able to do something faster because they perhaps have more experience in it than somebody else. But I don't believe it's a good metric to measure anything. So when it comes to efficiency, look at an alternative metric is to look at, okay, what is each team member managing in terms of fees in the practice, right? And there are different ways you can do that. And where I've got some training and I've got a spreadsheet that we use to kind of track it and break it down between each individual person. And that will get your team focused on actually, I need to maximize that ratio between what I'm costing the firm and what the firm is getting as a multiple of what they are paying me. Because everybody needs to return a multiple return on investment to you for the salary that you're paying them. That should be a minimum of 3, and it should be up, can be up to 6 times people's salary. So getting your employees' minds focused on that they need to actually generate a return for you, as opposed to just putting in figures on a timesheet. They might put in 40 hours a week, but has that 40 hours ever amounted to anything? Actually getting their minds focused on what they are generating is better, because they will then, if that ratio isn't so high as somebody else, then it will get them focused as to how can I drive that number up? And what's something in my control? Well, something in my control is to actually raise when perhaps a particular client is more difficult or more time consuming than another, in order for us to build it into our pricing process. So we're managing scope creep better, so we can increase the price because we're doing more, we're delivering more value compared to another client, and that will get my ratio up. So I believe that's a much better way of actually coming up with efficiency measures as to whether our people are productive or not.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the problem with timesheets and time is it focuses on the wrong things. For example, would you be, if you've agreed a fixed price for a client, and that fixed price is based on 10 hours, would you be happier with your team member spending 10 hours on that client? Or would you be happy if they spent 20 hours, but as part of the 20 hours, they did some research and figured out a way where they can actually help that client save an extra 100,000 in taxes, which then opens up the opportunity for another service. And I think focus on efficiency, sometimes makes us take shortcuts and miss things. And I think one of my favorite books written for the accounting profession, that's as relevant today as when it was first written, which I think is in 2005, is Firm of the Future by my friends Paul Dunn and Ron Baker. And they talk a lot about efficiency versus effectiveness. And that's certainly when I was still running my practice then, that made a lot of sense to me. So if you're worried about this efficiency issue, go and read the book Firm of the Future. It's a great book that really helps you think through that there's a better way of a better focus in our firms. Next one, Reza, is from John. I would like to have all client correspondence stored in chronological order, including emails. How does Reza deal with their correspondence and file? Same. I'm not sure why the same, but anyway, and it says /mark as well, but I don't do any of that. I don't have correspondence. I have very, very few emails in my inbox because my system's a little bit different. So don't copy me because I'm not running an accounting firm. But essentially, I don't tend to deal with emails. They all go to Sarah. So that keeps life easy for me. But Reza, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we have a piece of software that we use, which is Virtual Cabinet. There are many other variants and other software out there that people use, which enable us to store information by client, including emails, because it has a plugin with Outlook, so that if you're sending an email out or if you receive an email, you can quickly file it to the right client and by type right from within your Outlook. So Virtual Cabinet is one. There are many others as well that kind of do the same thing. But what I like about Virtual Cabinet is a search feature, because as long as you've got a powerful search feature, you can then find something that you want to in the future. And I think that's one of the metrics that I would use to measure up whether one document management software is better than another.
Okay, great. We have 2 more questions and a comment. So David Pankovic says, how does Reza clearly define where the full finance function starts compared to the role of the entrepreneur and his other non-accounting office staff?
Is that question kind of the role of the entrepreneur as in us or the client?
Yes, I'm not too sure either. So David, can you confirm that? When you say the role of the entrepreneur, who you're referring to? And while you're doing that, I'll move on to the other question from John, which is, can Reza expand more on the digital note-taking, i.e. software and hardware?
Yeah, so I've recently come across a piece of software, and you might be interested in this as well, Mark, called Notion. And Notion is it's incredible. It's got the best features of Trello, of Asana, of Evernote and Roam, and all these other apps all in one, and enables you to build. It's customizable, so it enables you to have a place for your notes, but also build out workflows. So you could build your practice management workflow within it if you wanted to. That's how powerful it is. But for now, I'm using it as a way of actually getting all the stuff that I read, watch, and listen to into one place, having my projects in there, which have workflows, so all the content creation that I do, so that anytime I want to create content, I know exactly where to go to. It's all categorized in the areas that I want. It allows me to collaborate with my team as well. We have dashboards on there where we can send each other tasks. We're using it as our firm's wiki as well. So all the systems and processes are written up on there as well. So yeah, it's a phenomenal piece of software, which is only growing. And one that was highly recommended by productivity gurus.
Okay, well, I've made a note. I'll check it out. So going back to David's question, he said it's the entrepreneur as the client. Does that make sense, or do you want me to read it again?
Okay, so the entrepreneur and his non-accounting office staff. So I guess it's the entrepreneur who would need our support. So our conversation is initially with the entrepreneur to say, okay, what are your pain points? What do you need help with? Where are you? Where are you lacking? Where are you not getting the information that you need to be able to make the decisions that you need to run your business? And often it's the case of, right, we make them problem aware to say they've got all these problems. They don't know where they are in their business, and they can't make decisions because they just don't have the figures to hand. So then we present the potential solution being that virtual finance office to say, well, actually, we can provide you with all of these things. We can manage it all for you. And here are the outcomes and the results that you will get from it. So it's a case of, working with the client to say, well, what do you have in place already? If you have admin staff, that's fine. We can work with them. They can do your sales invoicing, for example, and we can do the rest, because that's where your pain points are. You don't have the qualified staff to say do bank recs or management accounts or VAT, sales tax. We'll take over all the hard stuff, and your team can focus on just invoicing and credit control, say. And say purchase invoice, whatever they're comfortable dealing with. But we'll be the ones who will create the system for you. That's where the value is, that we will create your accounting system and make sure your accounting system flows efficiently based on the people you have and what you want from it.
Wow, that was extraordinary. Reza was so generous in sharing so much stuff. If you want to find out more about the Value Pricing Academy, then I'll put some details underneath this video. I'll also put some other links so that you can get some free resources from me. And I hope I get the chance to work with you at some point and help you on the same journey that Reza's been on to build an extraordinary accounting, bookkeeping business. Bye for now.